For most of us, as we approach retirement, we find ourselves with the bulk of our financial assets in two places. The first is our home, and the second is our 401k at work. And while we've been working, there really hasn't been a choice with what to do with our 401k. When you're with your current employer, with few exceptions, you cannot transfer money out of your 401k. But you have a really important decision as you consider retiring, as you consider leaving your employer. You now have the flexibility to roll your 401k into an IRA. And so the question is, should you? And that's what today's video is about. Again, for most of us, it's the second largest asset that we have. It's a super important question. So let's jump in and talk about the factors. You know, I think for a lot of us, the first consideration is cost. And with a 401k, there tends to be a lot of costs that we're paying that we don't even know that we're paying. In addition to the investment options that we're invested in, like let's say a mutual fund or an index fund, those costs can be quite a bit higher than what they are in an IRA. And the reason for that is the large custodians that tend to house our 401ks, companies like Fidelity, Schwab, sometimes insurance companies, they tend to offer a lot of services to our employers to help them run the 401k. And they tend to do that for quote unquote free. But as we all know, nothing's for free, particularly in the financial world. And so the way these companies are getting paid is by charging the plan participant, which is you and I. So the underlying cost in a 401k can be materially higher than what it is in an IRA. There's administrative costs. There tends to be fewer investment options. Those investment options tend to be more expensive. And until about 10 years ago, it was really hard to find out what you were actually paying to have your 401k managed for you. But within the last 10 years, there was a law change that mandated that 401k custodians, providers, had to once a year share a cost of service disclosure. And this is a document that's probably 20, 30 or more pages in small point font, so it can be hard to find out. But if you read through it, you're probably going to find you're paying at least 1% for the privilege of having your money in a 401k. Something that you could do for less money outside of a 401k into an IRA. So on the first one, from a cost standpoint, you can probably see where I'm ending up, and that is your costs are probably going to decrease if your money's in a 401k. Your costs will decrease if you transfer from a 401k to an IRA. So the first consideration is cost. The next consideration is control. How much control do you have on your 401k? For me, I'm in an unusual situation with my employer where I don't have any investment choices. It's one large plan, and the plan administrator decides on how the pool of money with all of my peers are invested. So we're all invested the same. Most people don't have that situation. However, most people suffer from fewer investment choices with their employer's 401k. With an IRA, if it's custody at like a Schwab or a Fidelity, you really have all of the investment choices of the world in front of you. Basically anything that trades on a public exchange. So you have more control with an IRA. So you have cost, you have control, and then convenience. And you tend to have to work with your 401k provider in order to get some of the services, in order to get some of the things done that you want done. If you want a distribution sent out, if you want to borrow against your 401k, you're reliant on your 401k provider, the administrator, to do that, and they're allowed to charge you for that service. So not only can it be more expensive, but it can be less convenient. So on those three fronts, I think an IRA is superior to a 401k. Now, the third one, which is super important, it's critical to know that your 401k is overseen by the Department of Labor. And in many ways, they have stricter regulations. There's different requirements. Your advisor, for instance, I've talked about a fee-only advisor, is a fiduciary to you 100% of the time. With a 401k, there's a higher fiduciary standard for all advisors, whether they're fee-only advisors or not. So that's an extra layer of protection. The other thing is 401ks, on the margin, a little bit better creditor protection. Now, there was a case about 20 years ago now that went to the Supreme Court where a creditor was trying to garner money out of an IRA account for somebody, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled that for a reasonable amount of money for retirement, of course they didn't define what that means, it is creditor protection. But in general, a lot of folks would tell you that a 401k offers slightly better creditor protection. And if you have a lot of money, maybe north of $5 million, north of $10 million, again, the Supreme Court did not define how much is reasonable for retirement. But you know, I think if you've got 20 million plus in a 401k, which would be very unusual, I'd say less than 1/10 of 1% of people have that. But you probably have better creditor protections in a 401k. So these are really important decisions. Again, you can easily lose 1% a year in additional costs with a 401k wrapper versus an IRA wrapper. Now, when it comes time to do a transfer from a 401k to an IRA, you want to do something that's called the custodian to custodian transfer. You do not want the check sent to you and then you deposit that check with your new custodian for the IRA. The IRS, there's a window that tends to be fairly short. I believe it's 60 days that you have to transfer that money. So just do a custodian to custodian transfer, and then you don't have to worry about what happens if that check gets lost or you go on vacation and you forget to deposit the money. There's no reason to take that risk, even though that risk is small. So those are the main criteria of should you keep your money in a 401k and an IRA. And I think if you enjoyed this video, you're also going to enjoy this video here that talks about how much income the average retiree has in retirement. So the average income of retirees. I hope you enjoy that video, and thank you for watching this one. Bye-bye.